Hey, this is Andres,
And Rob Edwards?
great friend, great writer Rob Edwards, right here in his office where the magic happened.
All right, this is it.
I wanted to start off with when you were a child, because I know that, like me, you shared a love for comics, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what were your favorites back then?
Oh, man. It was funny because there was a comic book store about a block and a half away from where I grew up. And there were 5 kids about my age on my block. So we would all go after school every day. We'd go to the same place. And we would fight over the big ones, unfortunately. We'd fight over Spider-Man, Iron Man, Hulk, and Captain America. And so if we were playing rock, paper, scissors, or whatever, whoever won that was it. So and then that person got to keep the book for like a little while, and then we'd trade it around. I loved Spider-Man. In fact, my big brother broke his arm pretending to be Spider-Man. He was climbing the bathroom wall. I'm in the bathtub. He's climbing, and he breaks his arm. So that was the love of Spider-Man in my house.
It's a very human character.
That's the thing.
When Stan did that.
Yeah, that's what Stan Lee did that nobody else could capture, or DC, unfortunately, could capture. Those guys were super, and they came from other planets, whatever. They did things, except for Batman. But Stan said, no, they're humans first. So they have human frailties, they have problems at school and during the day and stuff like that. And then, on their off time, they put on a suit and they fight crime. That was always great because it was that other dimension, and you could tell great human stories with it.
It's such a breakthrough, especially in his origin, having that part of the pathos to have his uncle die and launch him into this.
With great power comes great responsibility. That's everybody.
Yeah. So those comics influenced you early on, and
yeah.
When you were writing, did you ever think, I'm going to write comics as well as films, or it was always films? Or?
Well, I thought I would write films with a comic book enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So when I was doing Treasure Planet was obviously like creatures in space and stuff like that. It's basically a comic book in animated. And then, Princess and the Frog, a different kind of comic book, but just very much like whatever the mind can think of, and the jokes and the action and the music and all that. And so when Captain America came around, I was like, okay, good, I'm ready for this. This is good. I have a little bit too vivid imagination, and I like dealing with these characters as if they're real people, and playing around with them. Yeah.
And when did you have the idea to go back to comics and actually write a comic that you own?
Right. Well, with Defiant, Defiant was, the idea for it at first was, let's make a movie about Robert Smalls. This incredible guy was born a slave. When he was 23, he and his crew commandeered a slave ship and pirated it to freedom, facing all kinds of trials and tribulations along the way. And when we were trying to sell it, everybody was saying, well, what's the IP? What's it based on? Is it based on a book? And there were a bunch of books around there. And so I said, well, if we're going to tell the story, let's tell it in a modern way. And let's tell this is a live-action superhero. So let's tell it in a superhero way. And so the idea of a comic book came along. And then the guys from Stranger Comics were just fantastic. Sebastian Jones and the gang were really enthusiastic about addressing it. And I think we have just a fantastic graphic novel coming out on Juneteenth.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. And it couldn't be more important than right now to hear those stories.
Absolutely. And to be a little bit subversive about it. You can't really just go into schools or bookstores or whatever and try to move stuff, because somebody's going to put a label on it and try to burn it. And so you really have to go to kids where they are. And from that experience when I was a kid, of like, we would find a way to get to that comic book store no matter what was going on. If there was a hurricane storm, we'd get to that comic book store. So you want that kind of experience for kids to see it, to really be spellbound by it, and really want to read it and share it with their friends.
Yeah. I feel that the comic books, at least in my, coming from where I do, reading comics and making comics as a kid really prepared us well just for the cinematic. It was a simple stage of speaking or telling a story completely visually, and we understood framing in a way. It's such a great way, and it's such a great art form as well.
Absolutely. Well, actually, I had a comic strip in high school. I can draw. In fact, at Disney, they would say, like, you're not the worst artist on this movie. You're like third from the bottom. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's great. These guys are pros. So I can draw. So I do think visually, and so it doesn't come naturally, but it does it is easier for me than it would be for other people.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm pushing on this collaboration and to see you as a director, because I know you have that. And I was talking to another friend from DC actually about the directors that have that background are usually great directors.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott with his Ridley Grahams.
Yes.
Guillermo del Toro's a great artist as well.
Exactly.
All of those, of course, Avatar, James Cameron, he's a great visual artist. And I think that those of us who grew up making comics and handle that, I think, have a lot of potential to direct. And
exactly.
Very excited about
I think
it.
so.
Yeah,
That's... Oh, good. That's good to know.
I really also wanted to go from, your first steps at writing on your own, the type of stories that you like to write in the beginning, in the very beginning, as early as you can go back. Well, wow. Because in my case, it was like pirate stories is what I was writing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I got in love with Treasure Island and then Sandokan and all those and started writing stories. I don't know why, but that was like the first thing that caught my imagination.
Adventure.
Very early on.
Adventure. Yeah, I mean, I remember, because I went to a boys' school, Cranbrook in Michigan, and we had like all these adventure books, Kon-Tiki and, whatever, and all these things about like guys who would just get out with a stick in the middle of the tundra. And so I share that. I think when I started making movies, I think my first short film was like a basketball film.
How old were you then?
Oh, man, I was a teenager. I was 14.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I'll tell you, I think even before that, I would take my father's Super 8 camera and I would just kind of go outside and shoot stuff. Yeah. And so when Star Wars came out, I just remember like, okay, I'm going to make, Rob Edwards Star Wars. So I go to the garage. This is a terrible story, but I go to the garage and I had seen like the making of Star Wars, whatever. You take the ship and you fly the ship along and then how they would do the explosions. So I hang a ship from the roof of my garage, close the door so it's all dark, and I put the ship and I roll the film from under like a one of those things that you put a desk chair on. Yeah. The clear things. And so I had my huge setup, whatever, and I'm shooting this thing, and I was like, okay, great. I replaced that with a firecracker with a M8. Bad idea. And then whatever, like 3, 2, 1, and then bam, and the thing goes off, and I didn't think for a second that, I'm in an enclosed garage. Probably not a great place to blow up something. And so I was like deaf for the rest of the day, trying not to tell my parents. But it looked fantastic on film, and that was all it took. So the rest of it was just, okay, anytime I could get a couple of feet of film, a little bit of time. Friends of mine that were suckers who would stand in front of the camera for me. I was just making films, and that was like 12 years old to 14, all the way through high school.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, of course, film school.
You're way ahead of me, because I was publishing comics when I was that age.
Oh, wow.
12, 14. But then film came later in college as well. But I wanted to know also how you found your way into comedy, specifically with the TV.
At school, I was never the class clown. I was always the guy in the back of the room who made fun of the class clown. Yeah. So I was fairly quick. When I got, I think in college, I wanted to kind of be a filmmaker. I wanted to be, more of a serious filmmaker. And then every time I would slip a slight joke into whatever I was doing, it was just cathartic. It was wonderful. People just laugh all over the place. And so I said, okay, I got to really work on this. And so I started doing stand-up actually when I was in college. And then when I got out here, I did clubs and stuff like that, just to kind of work on it as a writer. And then the other part of it was there were not a lot of jobs for black writers in drama when I in '85 when I graduated college, and so all of the jobs were in sitcoms, and so I just started working in sitcoms. I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah. And even on like Fresh Prince, Andy Borowitz, the executive producer, and I would go down to the set and we would rewrite jokes in between takes. And so that meant that you had to kind of know the joke that you'd been working all week on and come up with a better joke, in the moment, in that 15 seconds as you're walking onto the stage, whisper it into Andy's ear and whisper it into Will's ear. And so I just really liked that. And I liked having that skill set.
Yeah, of course.
That. So when I got to Disney, of course, it was like, okay, good. You are writing jokes and drama and doing visual jokes and stuff like that all the time. So it was great.
And how was that step into Disney? What did that take to make that connection and break into the animated world?
I think I always wanted to. When I was a kid, there's this book called The Art of Animation, and everybody who's in animation has the book The Art of Animation. That big thick one with nice mine was just torn apart. I was tracing all the pictures and everything like that. So I told my agent, if there's ever an opportunity to get me an animated film, just put me up for it. And so Treasure Planet comes around. I didn't know it was Treasure Planet at the time. They send the script at 6 p.m. on red paper. So I can't Xerox it. I can't Xerox it myself, and Kinko's closed, so I can't go there. My meeting is at 10 a.m. So I read the script, I discover what it's about. I gave my wife a shopping list, like buy the book, buy Treasure Island. There was a 1950 version of Treasure Island that Disney had done. There was a movie called Captain Courageous, which I loved, which was in the same subject. And then Muppet Treasure Island. And so I just watched everything, read everything, made all my notes, and went in and kind of gave a TED talk of what, what I thought they'd done well and what I would do if I came onto the movie. And that got me the gig, that amount of studying and coming up. And then I discovered everybody's like that all the time. That everybody knows every movie. It is film school on steroids. Comparable to what you see at Marvel. Everybody knows everything. So the game is just through the roof. And for me, that's just like it's home.
Okay. We're gonna get there in a little bit, but first we have to talk about Princess and the Frog.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the whole process of how it came together, when you became part of it, what got you the gig as you just did with this one, and also what surprised you about that process, and how far do you think we've come since?
Yeah, well, I was actually having lunch with Ron Clements and John Musker, who had directed Treasure Planet. And they had just pitched the movie to Oprah Winfrey. And Oprah had notes. And they were kind of like, oh no, down in the dumps about it. And we just had lunch about, just catching up with stuff. And I said, well, geez, what's going on? And they told me the story. And I said, well, would you mind pitching it to me? So they pitched me the movie. And I said, well, here are the notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they said, oh my God, those are the exact same notes that Oprah had. Did you talk to her? I said, no. Those are the notes. And it just so happened that I just finished another project. So I said, I can start here tomorrow. I can fix everything, that's broken. I know you guys. And so, you know what it's like to work with me. And you won't find anybody who will work harder on this movie. Because I knew exactly what this movie was going to mean. You say first Black Princess out of Disney.
We saw it the other day in WonderCon with that little girl that came up to us. And you see it every day. Yeah.
That was great. I mean, and here it is at 15 years later. And this little girl is, and her grandmother was dressed as Lewis.
Yeah, that was beautiful to see.
And I see, every time I go to WonderCon or Comic-Con, there are a bunch of guys who dress as Facilier.
Yeah.
And so I'll see them, like, hey guys, how you doing? And I've seen multiple Princess Tianas around, and so I always, race them down and I take my picture with them. But it's amazing that after all this time, it still has this impression on people, and people will walk up to me and say, "Oh my God, I hear you wrote Princess and the Frog."
Yeah.
And when I say yes, they burst into tears. They literally burst into tears because it meant that much to them. They'd been waiting all their lives to see something like that.
That's what storytelling is all about.
I think it's
that impact.
Yeah, I think it's why you tell stories. You're right. It's the effect of stories. It's the power of good storytelling.
And then we come to Captain America, which is, it's great to see that. And I know that you had seen Falcon as a character that you'd like to see. And did you ever think that you would see it on the big screen as Captain America, and that you'd be one of the people making it?
Well, there's nothing like the call, that I had talked to the guys at Marvel about other projects before, and I was kind of like close but no cigar to some of them. And then I get this call from Nate Moore, the producer, and he says, "Hey Rob, we got one for you." Like, okay, that's nice. When am I coming in to pitch? It's like, no. We have some time. It was like during quarantine. It's like, no, this one's yours. And he says, it's Captain America 4. And I just threw the phone in the air. I just went running around the house like a madman. It was a thrill, and just working with that team, and once again, it was like, first Black Princess. It was I know what that means. I know what that would be to people because it was like that to me. Man, it was just a ball, and I love the way it turned out. Anthony Mackie is fantastic, and yeah, I was just really really proud of that movie.
If you had to choose, or just whatever comes to mind first, one specific contribution of yours to the movie that you're the most proud of, I guess.
Oh man, I teach at USC, and I always say movies are structure, and structure is movies.
Yeah.
You know that the most important thing about a movie is the shape of the movie. Does the end affect you? If the end affects you, that means that you've done everything else right. And so the structure of that movie, I think, is really tight. It's a story of three guys who think they're the hero of the movie, and only one is. And, you know, they all kind of converge at different times. The pacing of it, the way that it lays out, the what it's about, you know, the themes of it, the way that the relationships play out, all of that I'm really, really proud of.
Tell me a little bit about the new Falcon, because as a Latino, seeing you know, people of color.
Yes.
And how was writing that character?
Oh, that was huge.
Yeah.
Well, that was great, because you know that this guy will be to you know, to Sam Wilson what Sam was to Steve Rogers, and so you know, okay, well, you know what happened with Anthony Mackie along the way. It's going to happen to Joaquin Torres, so you have to respect that. Look, okay, who is he? He's a big kid. He's like a little brother, and he says, he has one of the most effective lines in the movie, which is, you know, I want to be you. And he says it with such great sincerity. And the actor has so much joy and wonderfulness. So I'm looking forward to, I mean, now I'm just a fan. So, but I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, what happens in the future.
Definitely. What do you make of these attacks on DEI and erasing, like, black heroes from the internet as they have in this administration? What does that say about where this country is at the moment?
It's sad. It's the saddest thing in the world, because it's not like it's not like it actually happens. Like, okay, like, oh, well, you know, well, we don't see black people, and so there were never black people in American history.
Right.
You know, it's not that oh, maybe black people weren't the driver of the economy during the late 1800s. Yeah, exactly. You know, maybe we didn't, you know, do all this. Maybe we didn't save the industrial age.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's silly. And the silliness, I mean, if you want to get political, the part of it that I find interesting, especially right now, is that we're talking about we're bringing factories back. Yay, America. And we forget that we had factories. Nobody wanted to work in them. So people came from the South. Black people came from the South. And that's why that's why Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia are, you know, have such large black populations, because nobody wanted to work in those factories, and black people, you know, stepped in. The whole thing with Springfield, you know, happened because they built a factory. Nobody wanted to work with it, and the Haitians came in and worked in those factories. So, you know, when you forget about history and you say, like, oh, well, there were no black people and let's just erase them, then you're going to repeat it over and over again. You know, part of what I do as a storyteller and a filmmaker is reminding people, you know, that black people are not animals. You know, that we're, you know, that Princess and the Frog is a very dignified portrayal of you know, Princess Gianna, and you know, Sam Wilson, you can be proud of, and you know, other characters that I've done. That's the idea, because so many people, it's so easy to just vilify people when you don't know them, and especially when you say, like, oh, they don't exist, then you make up whatever you want. You have the boogeyman on the other side of the door.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about how important it is to put people in other people's shoes for them to understand and open their eyes to the experience. And we as the storytellers can do that in a way that can circumvent some of the barriers that people have and reactions. Yeah. It's sad that we have people that are sort of demonizing DEI, the term, you know, as if it was bad, or even among us, some of us live in a privileged world where, you know, it's multiracial and we feel like we're over that, right? Yeah, right. But then it takes an election and somebody blatantly racist saying blatantly racist things and attacking our communities for us to realize we got a long way to go.
I don't get it. You know, I mean, like you say, like we live in a nice little bubble where, you know, you walk across the street and everybody's everybody and nobody looks at you weird. But there's people who want to look at you weird, and there's people who don't want you in their neighborhood or whatever it is. I don't know. I mean, I don't understand that. You know, I just think it's why go out of your way to put all that energy into hating somebody? Mm-hmm. Why? It just doesn't make any sense. Just live your life. Let them live their lives.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lesson for people who attack, oh, Marvel's getting woke or whatever. That's the essence of Stan Lee since the beginning. It was a.
Well, you talk. Well, exactly. These things go. That Stan Lee named a character Black Panther during the 70s. I mean, you gotta get. Stan knew what he was doing. He was always on that side, and I think he knew the power of storytelling, the power of imagery, and stuff like that, and specifically what people were going to buy. The pendulum always swings back and forth. In fact, you could say that right now, what we're experiencing is the pendulum swinging from the Obama administration. The people are still angry at it. You can tell. People still talk about it. And
he did great. Imagine if he had been as flawed as...
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's just going to continue to, kind of swing back and forth until it ends up, hopefully, in a sane place.
Well, part of what I'm doing is trying to say we all have a role to play there.
Yes.
And you're playing a huge role just by showing the world as it is, with the diversity that we have. So, so I'm so proud to be your friend.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, man. Well, we will go to Valhalla together.
We'll keep fighting. We gotta keep fighting.
Yeah, you gotta keep fighting.
Yeah.
Because that's the key to it. Is that if you give up, who wins?
Right.
We all have to have fight in us, and we all have to continue to fight for whatever we think is right. You go back to comic books and stuff. That's what that is about. I have a new film, King of Kings.
Yeah.
And King of Kings is kind of about that. A man with a vision and kindness who tried to kind of teach it. And so you watch that, and hopefully you get inspired by that message. And of course, as we were talking about, with Robert Smalls, that image, the whole idea behind telling that story is, here was a guy who should actually, by any other account, just kind of give up. I'm a slave, I'm, whatever, my mom's a slave, everybody around me, whatever, I'm in this institution. I'm even working for the side that's against me. I'm working for the Confederacy.
Yeah.
And through that, black box of storytelling, something happens, and then he winds up rich, buying the house that he was enslaved in, running a railroad and a publishing house, and running for Congress 5 times, dying of old age, all of these things. And you say, if he can do that from where he started, then I shouldn't worry about somebody complaining about, whatever, my history. Yeah, no, that's why we tell these things. We want to kind of amp each other up and go in and try to change the narrative however we can.
For sure. For sure. Definitely. Is there anything you want to say about your dream project, the Idris Elba?
Oh, yeah.
007.
Well, I tell you, I just had a conversation about it.
Oh, really?
Today. Yes. I'm talking to a director. The key is what is a follow-up to Captain America? What great stories are out there yet to be told? And the elusive Idris Elba James Bond has always been a coffee table conversation for a long time.
Yeah.
And and even it may not be Idris Elba, it may not be James. It's obviously not James Bond, but the notion of what is it that we think about when we say the words, ooh, Idris Elba, wouldn't it be great if we could do this and this and this? And we often talk about it, but if you're a comic book artist, then you just start sketching it. And you say, okay, this is what that would look like, and this is that. A lot of Black Panther, there's that middle scene in the casino, and where that kind of comes to being. You see him, and you see the warriors and everything, and that should be how it kind of plays out. So we'll see. We have a different take on it. Obviously, like I said, it starts a great conversation. So we're talking about that. But it's like to have told so many stories and then to have other stories that you're like, oh man, can't wait to get to that one. Can't wait to get to the 3x5 cards and start typing that one out. That's what drives me.
Exciting. Well,
yeah.
There's so much to talk about. We will do this again for sure, and
absolutely.
We're catching up with you through your progress. Always root for you, and thank you so much.
Defiant comes out on Juneteenth.
Don't miss it.
Graphic novel.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.